Call our budget committee back to order, and we've got our building department fund. It's tab 3. Committee members, welcome, Bill. Good morning.
Good morning.
Have at it.
Alright, so not any big changes here. We've got 5 different budgets here. Building, electrical program, on-site, septic, environmental health, and the water program. As you can see, we really don't have much. We got a 14% increase in materials and services. Personnel services 2%. Not a lot of changes here. We haven't done a fee increase since 2014, and we're literally we have the lowest fees in the state. I'm probably this next year, with the grace of the commissioners, going to do a fee increase. And we're still probably gonna be lower than everyone in the state. So, but with the amount of revenue we produced this year, it's looking like we're gonna be, it's gonna be real close to our projection. Or in the past, we've actually put money in the bank. All of these departments are self-supporting, and I'm just gonna, spend the rest of my 20 months here trying to make that continue that. So
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Commissioner Frooms.
So we heard from the clerk yesterday about the number of recordings being down. Has that translated into building permit?
less revenue, yeah.
So are you having less building permit?
Yes,
Slow
yes,
down a little bit?
our permit activity has gone down. And that is, that will be the reason for the increase. I can't tell you what it's gonna do, but yeah, this last year, actually the last 2 years, we've watched it slowly
Slow down a little bit?
slow down. So, and it's doing it mostly, I'd say, in residential.
That's probably interest rate related, economy
That's what I
related,
think.
so that could change in November though.
It could. Hope so.
But you are budgeting for an increase in revenue in the building.
Yes,
section.
for building and in environmental health, I'm looking.
So, but in building, what gives you the idea that that's actually gonna increase?
Increase.
What do you mean increase? Increase what, Tom?
Well, your revenues,
If I increase the fees?
but that's built into this already.
No, that's not built into this.
Okay, so that's what I'm wondering, you're showing that you're going to increase your revenue next year in building.
Yes.
And I'm wondering what makes you think that if it's slowing down?
Oh, no, what I'm saying is I'm going to increase my fees. I'm gonna go for a fee increase to increase my revenue so that we can make projections basically the following year. This year, when you look at our projections or if you look at what we brought in this year compared to last year per month, it's less. And we're gonna be real tight, in my opinion, on meeting this year's budget projection. So this budget, we didn't increase this budget very much on purpose. So that, if you don't approve a fee increase, I'm not gonna be that far out of whack. But I'm planning on proposing a fee increase this next budget year so that we can meet our projections in this budget.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I know what you're asking, the
Yeah.
actuals are less than, I'm sure, what we're budgeted in those years that are on our sheet, so
Yeah.
he's budgeting less revenue than he budgeted before, but it's still higher than last year's actual.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I see what you're asking.
Okay,
Hey Bill, when do you expect this fee increase to go in effect?
Well, that's gonna be completely up to you guys. I'm gonna, I'll prepare it, before our next fiscal year and then, work with Tom to figure out, when you guys think is best. It's completely up to you and of course, the state to approve it. But, that's kind of up to you. I'm just here to tell you, the way things look, I really feel we need to do something in the next year.
But honestly, we do need to find out what happens in November. Right, I mean, if there's a change in administration, interest rates go down, housing takes off again, that'll affect what you need to do and could affect how many people you need to have, could change stuff, so that variable's important for us to know as we move forward. If we stay with the status quo administration, it's, the downward trajectory is a little easier to predict.
Right.
Well,
That'll take a while to take effect,
Right.
of course.
Well, if you look back in 16, it didn't take very long to affect. I mean, it happened in months.
Yeah.
The economy just took off. So we'll see.
you have an idea of what percentage you think is gonna
Oh,
be?
no more than probably 10% across the board. Some things will be, look like a bigger increase than other things, but some of it is adjusting the fees. Like, they have this thing where if you buy a mechanical permit, you're set with a base $50 fee, and then they charge for a furnace, add $3.70. For a bathroom fan, add $4. So there's no reason for that, so a lot of it's gonna be basically straightening some of that stuff out also.
You did a lot of that when you first got here, making sure the fees are being
I did, we were,
applied to the right type of permit.
when I got here, you and I were faced with everybody saying that we needed to do a fee increase. And I said, wait a second, let's see what money's being left on the table. And we kind of looked at all that, and then here we are 10 years later, and still no fee increase. So I think we've done pretty good with that.
Yeah.
But with all the inflation and everything, you'll see in my, I've got over $100,000, maybe more than that, going out in, just in our vehicles, right? I mean, the
Vehicles are
fuel-
twice as much as they were 10 years ago.
They are, I
Yeah.
was paying, when I got here, I was paying like 25,000 for a vehicle, now I'm paying 40.
Mhm.
And I'm sharing all of our vehicles with all the departments, so I'm taking, I'm buying a new vehicle for the building department, and then after it gets about 90,000 miles on it, I'm passing it down to environmental health or to, on-site. So we're trying to play that game too.
Yeah.
You run a great department,
Yep,
multiple departments.
Thank you.
okay,
I would move to tentatively approve the building department's budget.
Second.
Commissioner Freeman's made the motion to tentatively approve, Commissioner Kress has seconded. Any other discussion?
Just, we're looking forward to having you here another 5 years. We sure appreciate the work you do.
That's what I was wondering if we were gonna vote on the 20-month statement or not, so.
I couldn't let that go.
I appreciate
The
that,
record
thank you.
show 50 months or 20 months, is what he said, I'm not sure.
Nothing on the record.
Okay, motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good one.
You bet.
Juvenile Services, tab 15. Eric, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners, members of the Budget Committee. Eric Fromdahl, Juvenile Department. Our instructions were to basically status quo. Some other news came up in the county and we were asked to take another stab at some reductions, which we did, and this budget reflects that effort. With the exception of we did find in our convention and schools training budget, we had left in the cost to provide collaborative problem solving to all of our residential staff. That was a grant from past year, which is not in there anymore, but we didn't take it out of the training side, so that's minus 15,000. So that's the only change that we will have to work with Dan on, I believe. So if you have any questions,
We can do that before final adoption. Perfect.
Questions, comments?
I guess what I'd like to say is, Eric, the work that you guys do is really important, and taking care of these youth and helping them get on the right track is something you've dedicated your life to, and I know your team works hard on that every day. It's a little frustrating that the state doesn't understand the value of that enough to fund it appropriately. So don't take our need to reduce your budget as some sort of a message that we don't think what you're doing is good work or important work. Just we're not in a position to do it for the state of Oregon anymore. So hopefully the state will recognize the value of these programs and start funding them adequately. So thank you for the work you do.
I recall a few years back, you were something to do with beds, you had beds and kids from other counties coming in and you had revenue from that. Is that something that can never come back or?
it's,
Oh, you are still doing that?
yeah, currently, we've averaged over last 3-4 years, approximately in excess of what it costs to run those programs, about 1.5 million a year. This year, I think we're looking at close to 2 million. For the foster kid programs, that then the extra that we don't use in those programs, the revenue that comes in, we fund public safety, probation, detention, court services, things like that.
So there has been years and we were on the path, and you can look back and actually 2021, and this probably was a COVID factor, where they didn't use any general fund contribution. But prior to that, 7-8 years ago, we were on the path to get your budgeting where it wasn't requiring any general fund, but we were operating several facilities, including the one that's now a daycare center, and the state was funding at a rate that was adequate to make that happen. So again, these state foster care programs, and we say this differently, they pay what technically it costs to run just the facility, but all the overhead costs associated with it, and the other part of the juvenile department, there was a time when they paid enough to fund all of that. Now they're only funding the facility cost plus a little. It's probably the best way to say that. It isn't quite as lucrative as it once was.
And they only fund, do they only fund an occupied bed, for lack of a better word, or do they fund
So
available beds that you have available?
So Commissioner Boyce has negotiated that. I did it once before, but he's negotiated that the last couple times. And our contract is for bed space, not heads in the bed.
Okay,
Prior, it had been, you're right, it had been an issue of whether the beds were being used or not on the
Sure.
funding. And that really doesn't work for us because you can't have it ready for them.
It was actually worse than that. It
Yeah.
was if there was a head in the bed at the stroke of midnight.
I remember
Yeah,
that,
yeah, that-
I remember
I
that,
remember
yeah,
that.
it was like,
And for
We
a
might
lot of
have had
programs,
we might have had one in there for 23 hours and 45 minutes, but at the stroke of midnight, if the kid was not in bed, we didn't get paid.
yeah,
a lot of programs around the state are still in that situation. But there was effort made by Commissioner Freeman and Boyce to fix that.
Yeah.
So we can accurately budget.
sure,
So that's been very helpful.
alright. Any other comments, questions? And we have a motion and a second, is that? Or we have,
I will make
Move
that.
to tentatively approve the budget.
He made it, I'll second it.
okay. Commissioner Boyce has made a motion to tentatively approve, Commissioner Kress has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thanks, sir. Oh, we've got two here, don't we? Grant administration is tab 10.
So this is a one-person budget basically. There's one person in the position, she is our local public safety coordinating council coordinator, works very closely with Commissioner Boyce. She also is the county's HIPAA compliance officer. And so we have her at 0.1 FTE in the juvenile budget and then 0.9 in the grant administration budget. And the one thing I would like to point out is we're always here at this time, and I remember saying it for the last 2 years, and not quite sure what the final grant numbers are gonna be that come in, and 10% pay for her admin fee, basically. And so we budget general fund into that, and then hopefully that gets backfilled by the admin fee that comes with those grants. But I would say for one position, I think that the return on investment is very good. She has the JRI grant, impacts, specialty court, drug court, specialty court, mental health court, RSAT, and BJA Second Chance Act, which is all funding that comes to the county and funds a lot of different county departments, positions, sheriff's office and DA's office mainly. And the totality of that revenue is just over $2 million for a position that costs, you know, right now out of general fund, $112,000. But again, hopefully some of that admin fee from those grants will help pay for her position.
Local Public Safety Coordinating Council position as a coordinator came originally from the Association of Oregon Counties, funded that and split it amongst different counties, and we shared. Commissioner Boyce really took off with the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council as the chair, and Douglas County has really benefited from that work. When that AOC's funding for that program went away, Commissioner Boyce saw the need to continue that, and Eric's department has been a good place for that to be housed. Some of that money, actually a lot of that money that you just described, those grants, come from the Criminal Justice Commission. And I actually serve on the Criminal Justice Commission, so I see the impact of like Impacts Grant and those other things. It's really important work. My hope is we'll be able to continue for some time to continue to fund that, but you know, there's a point where things get pretty tight here, so but right now it's worth funding.
And I would like to recognize Ellen Noah, who does a good job on the financial side.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It's a lot to keep track of, and so she loves the work, and maybe I'm putting words in her mouth, but I think she does.
Back there.
One of the things, Dan, that we need to make sure that we do is every one of those grants has an admin piece. And we need to track the revenue from the admin portion of those grants to see.
That's a great point, and it's a countywide thing, not just in these grants, but I think in the past, we've kind of not looked at that closely and not worried about it too much, and it's definitely something that's more on my radar going forward.
Yeah, cause it could pay for a substantial portion of her.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I honestly believe that the admin portion of the grants that she's bringing in, I mean, I think it's safe to assume that every one of those grants has a set aside for admin that's typically around 10%.
Yeah.
And so if we're doing $2 million in grants a year, there's $200,000 worth of admin funds that more than pays for that position and Ellen to help her. So I really don't think that we're spending general fund resources necessarily to pay for this position. And that was the intent. That's what I looked at
Right.
when the CJC money went away for the position. I said, well, wait a minute, you know, I think that there's still opportunity here to do this work without it costing us any money. And when you look at the fact that you can pay for the administration with the grant, and then you've also got $2 million worth of grant funds to put to work here in the community, it makes a lot of sense to keep doing this.
And we hear often from the counties the need for that administrative funding, or they can't run the program. So you're right, it's supposed to be helping with all that.
And so you think that this admin fee and these $2 million in grants is actually paying this, it's just not being applied to this in our budget?
It's possible, I mean, we need to look at the specific grants, but most, like Commissioner Boyce says, most grants do allow for that. For whatever reason, the county hasn't always looked at that very
Tracked it.
closely, and
And what ends up happening is we take the awarded grant funds and we apply them to the program.
Correct.
And all the money goes to the
Yep.
program and we end up paying for the person. And so as we move forward, we need to just take a closer look at that and make sure that we take our carve out for our person so that we're saving that expense.
Good idea.
Just for my own does the admin fee, is that above the grant
No,
awarded, or is it part
In the
of, so you take it out of the
Some-
grant awarded, okay?
some do, but not that many.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just curious.
typically there's a, you know, in the grant agreement, there's an allocation for admin services or not.
Uh-huh,
And just because we're busy and we have our heads down and we're doing the work and we've got the program that needs to be funded, and we get the grant money and we fund the program. But we need to be a little bit more diligent about, you know, because if that's what happens, all the money goes to the program, which is doing good work.
mhm,
You know, we end up paying this position out of general fund.
Sure.
Well, when general fund's going the wrong way, we don't wanna do that anymore.
Yeah.
So.
alrighty. Any other questions, comments? If none,
The other thing that I should add about this one spot before we finish is that there's also a state law that requires some HIPAA compliance, especially for the juvenile department. And this one person who does this work spends part of her time doing HIPAA compliance work. And it's sort of interesting that we were actually able to find a person who was interested in doing both of those things that are drastically different.
Mhm.
But she was trained and skilled to do it, and we're lucky to have her. She does a great job on both fronts, so.
Good.
She does the HIPAA compliance work
that's great.
that's required countywide and within the departments where it's required. And then also this grant admin work, so. With that, I move to tentatively approve the budget for the grant administration.
Okay, Commissioner Boyce has made the motion.
One second, I thought we were.
Katie has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
South Douglas Justice Court, tab 13. Michelle? Good morning, good morning.
Good morning. Okay, not a lot of changes. I'm here to answer any questions, but other than a couple of increases from third-party vendors like Shavs, that's the docket management system, they increased their fees by, I think, 2%, so there's an increase there. Other than that, I didn't change a lot. We pretty much work within the same budget allotments that we have previously done. My FTE is great. We have a great caseload per person. I don't need any more people. We just keep keeping on. I mean, I didn't do last fiscal year I did calendar year, not fiscal year, but we did $1 million intake. You won't see that reflected there because part of it goes to the state and part of it goes to 3 different cities and part of it goes to 2 different police departments. But I mean, we do a lot down there, and you'll see half of it is what comes to you to fund our department. But I've got no complaints down there. I don't see any problems. We did purchase a copy machine that actually cost us less money because our lease amount went down. And we did some changes just recently to save some money on utilities that are gonna save us, you know, $1,000 annually, so not a big decrease, but we are trying to save money where we can. I don't really have anything.
Not sure if all the budget committee members have been down to your court, but over the last several years, there's been a substantial investment in making the court space safe and a little more usable for the court, and it looks very nice down there.
Yep,
You
I
guys did a good
appreciate
job
it.
with it.
Yeah, we have the alertness button is now installed and was accidentally activated during install and it works, so that's great.
It's an unplanned test.
It was an unplanned test, it was supposed to be not activated and it was, and they called them off in time, but our staff is elated about the safety, they're all done now. We can safely say that everything's been taken care of now, and it takes some time, but I don't have any complaints for sure, yeah. Great communication with law enforcement, they're very good about not sending people to me that they are worried about my safety for, which I appreciate, cause as you know, we don't have any on-site security, so other than.
One of the measurements of a justice court is where law enforcement sites to. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. And Judge Mayfield is one of those courts that law enforcement feels like they can get justice in. So a lot of sites get cited into her court.
We did 6,000 last calendar year cases. I think about 500 of them were misdemeanors. And the rest broke down. I didn't bring it with me, but 6,000 cases a year is quite a bit. It's increasing over the last few years, so.
The question came up
Yeah.
from, if I got cited, if someone received a citation while they were on the dunes, why do I have to go to Caneyville?
Right, well, I think most of them still go to Reedsport at this time, so that wouldn't be the case, but I mean, I have jurisdiction over the entire county. If it's just a violation, you can literally just call into the court, enter your plea, pay by phone, pay by mail, pay online. You never actually have to come see me unless you want an in-person hearing with you and the officer and myself, and that's the only time you would be required to come see me over the course of the case. Most people don't exercise that right, and so it wouldn't be a hardship, but that's the answer I give for that.
The point is that law enforcement has that discretion.
Yeah, they can
They
cite whatever
can
they
cite
want to.
into whatever
Yeah.
court they wanna cite into.
I mean, and on a rare occasion, you know, I will do a virtual hearing, if the officer needs it or the defendant needs it with communication ahead of time, I can do that. But a lot of times, one trip to the court over the one citation is not that much of a hardship for people, so.
Two judges work together also, they're pro tems for each other, and then there's other pro tems that are assigned when needed, so it's kind of a interesting system, it seems to work well.
In our, yesterday we talked about the county doing work for several different taxing districts or municipalities and that sort of thing. So those municipalities and the state and that sort of thing, those citations that you're addressing, do you get a fee
Yes.
for handling that for them?
Right, so state tickets, so tickets that come from state troopers or waymasters, there's a certain percent that every ticket off the top goes to the state. And then there's a breakdown that's more complicated than I can explain in the back end of our system that sends what needs to go to each place. If a sheriff's office cites a ticket to our court, then the county gets the lion's share of the proceeds, although the state does get a cut and certain things go different places before that happens. If they're tickets that are contracted for Canyonville, Riddle, or Glendale, we have an intergovernmental contract with them, and that ticket comes in, so the state takes their portion, and then we split down the middle any proceeds that come from the fines. And then we retain the court costs as our exercising of practice. And then the same is true for the Cow Creek Tribal Police and the Myrtle Creek Police Department. If they cite, then they get half of the ticket fined when we receive it.
Okay, just
It's a
curious.
lot more complicated than it sounds.
It really is. The breakdowns are very specific and it's very in the
Well, I'm
back
just
end of
happy
our
to,
system.
I'm happy to hear that
And
we're
all
getting
those breakdowns are
getting
statutory
fees
too.
recovered,
Yeah, there's
so for our-
statutory.
Legislature does all that, I've
Administration,
been
yeah.
through all
Yeah,
that.
and then, I mean, at the end of the day, like, we call it end of the month reconciliation. We close a little early so that we can take all the money from the month. And then I sit down with all the reports and say, okay, this goes to the state, and this goes to the county, and this goes to these 3 cities, and this goes to each
Sure.
department. And it pennies out at the end of the month, and then we start over again, so.
Okay.
It's not my favorite day of the month,
All right.
but it's an important.
Software that just automatically does it as they're paid, you have to actually sit down and audit it?
Well, I have to, they set out a report, and then I have to reconcile the reports in 3 different manners to make sure that the bank account matches the third-party system that matches our on-site system, and make sure it all balances out and send it all its ways. So, yeah,
Judge and bookkeeper.
I'm a lot of things.
She doesn't know how to say no.
Yeah, well, I'm learning, so be careful.
Tell people I practice it in the mirror, so, no.
I know, right? That's how I end up on all these committees and all these things. But I love my job and I love my community and I just appreciate the opportunity to be where I am. So, thank you all.
Appreciate you and your team down there, so, thank you very much.
Any additional questions or concerns?
I'll second.
Commissioner Boyce, or Commissioner Kress has made the motion and Commissioner Boyce has seconded. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, have a good day.
Yeah.
Let's see. Information technology.
Oh, yeah.
Cause my trucks get tickets all over the state.
Good morning.
Go
Good
to
morning,
county.
Commissioners and Finance Committee. Nancy Laney, IT and Radio Director. Before you, we have, we'll start with the IT budget. We have a hold the line, status quo. And we did make one cut, you'll see that reflected in the staffing and the FTE. We also had budgeted a slight increase for some of our support contracts. We had one vendor increase our rates 18%, but for the most part, we're seeing a general increase in our maintenance and support services, so that's what is reflected in that increase. For the most part, everything else is status quo. There's no significant changes in our program or our operations. We have continued to advance our cybersecurity program. We spend a lot of time and effort updating systems. This last year, we just updated the HR payroll system, and we continue to go through and update and maintain and spend a lot of effort dealing with vulnerabilities and updating our systems. And so we do have a CGIS audit coming up this fall. So there's a lot of work preparing for that and making sure that we're following all of the security standards that are required, given that we house criminal justice information systems. We do on a daily basis have password attacks, cyber attacks on a daily basis. In the last year, we've had 2 significant issues that we've been able to remediate without significant impact. We've had 13 minor incidents where employees have clicked on links that went to malicious sites that could have been bad, but we were able to contain that. But the efforts that we continue to take are strengthening and shoring up our systems. Plus, we've done a lot of effort in the last year to improve our ability to recover if we did have a cyber attack or a ransomware attack where we did get encrypted. So those are our priorities, and we've spent a lot of effort updating and maintaining these systems and getting them to a point to where we have solid processes in place.
I'm not sure if the budget committee's aware, but last year, one of our neighboring counties had a cyber attack and ransomware, and Nancy and her team were able to assist them a little bit in trying to, I don't know if recover's the right word, or rebuild their system.
They lost all their data.
Yeah, so our emergency management folks and Nancy and her team were able to help them hopefully learn a little bit as they were doing that to help protect us better, but it is devastating to a county or an organization when this happens. We've had several counties in the state that have gone through this. We've had other organizations here in our community go through
Yeah,
it.
there's been several cities in the last year that have
Cities,
also
school
been attacked.
districts, businesses.
Yeah.
It is incredibly important, the security work that you're doing. As frustrated as I get when you send out the test things to try to trick us.
You know, for all of the security training we do, we still find employees are, you know, they get pressured, there's a time, you know, it looks real, the, emails are getting incredibly, you know, sophisticated, and it used to be it was easy to spot the red flags, and it's getting much more difficult, so it's, you know, we.
AI stuff coming, I don't know how we stay
And the
together.
AI stuff is gonna just amplify it, and the attacks are escalating at a significant rate. We're part of Department of Homeland Security, we participate in a CISA calls, and we get notifications from them on a daily basis of attacks and threats as they're emerging. So we do have some inside information on the threats as they're coming out. But that is still in reaction to an attack that's been successful.
Sure.
After the fact.
So,
The world we live in today.
absolutely.
Move to tentatively approve the IT budget.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Boyce has made the motion, Commissioner Kress has seconded. Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Moving on to our radio systems, tab 30.
Alright, so for the radio department, you can see that we've had, it looks like a lot of changes, but I want to explain that for the most part, we've cut one FTE, we had a project manager, we were doing some upgrades. And right now we're on pause on projects for the radio department, so that position has been eliminated, and you can see that reflected. The operation portion of the budget is remaining constant. There's a, you know, the normal 6% increase. The large numbers that you see in here are really a reflection of grant and project work that is running through here, and those are grants and projects that have been completed. The actual operations portion of it is steady state, status quo with no changes, other than eliminating the project manager position.
Move to tentatively approve the radio system budget.
Second that.
Commissioner Boyce has made the motion, Katie has seconded. Any other discussion?
Just real quick if I may, so I
Commissioner
kind of made this comment when we did the sheriff's department budget yesterday, but this is the radio system that all the emergency organizations in the county use. And it is a department in itself that Nancy runs, it's not under the sheriff. And if you look at the budget and if you go back even further, you can see there's been a substantial investment made in keeping this system operating. I would venture to guess it's operating as good today as it ever has. There's technologies out that have advanced beyond the ability of this current system. And I know Commissioner Kress is working with Nancy to find opportunities to upgrade our system into the new world of digital, and that's ongoing. But this concept that somehow we haven't maintained or we're not investing in our radio system that's out there in the public is a misguided concept. You guys do a fantastic job in some very difficult terrain. I would venture to guess that we have one of the most difficult terrains for radios of any county in the state. We're the fourth largest county by size. Those other big counties are where it's flat and they don't have the mountains we have. So, and even our county to the north of us, like Lane County, they have similar topography on the west and the east side of their county, but the middle of their county is much more flat than ours. So, it's very difficult to make radios work in mountains and with trees. So, you guys do a great job trying to make that work, and I know Commissioner Kress has spent a huge amount of time trying to figure out what the future of this system looks like.
Yeah, you know, and to add to that a little bit, to expand on it, and I've gotten jaded on it now because I'll have these folks come in there and say, oh, we can do that for you, we can design that system for you, and then they, you know, it doesn't take them long when it comes to all the things we do with our radio system, whether it be that topography he's talking about, or all the cities that are around, you know, in the 100 valleys of the Umpqua, that, yeah, they cry uncle pretty fast. So it's a pretty complicated system we're gonna have to try to pull off here. We do definitely work at this pretty diligently.
Yeah, it is a significant effort. We do support 55 different agencies on our emergency radio communication system, so we have a wide array of users that rely on this for first responder duties. We do have a significant project we just did. We upgraded the microwave electronics from analog to digital in the last year. We've upgraded the batteries and replaced all the batteries at all 19 towers. We're in the process of converting and upgrading the power converters at each site to increase the capacity in preparation for a radio system upgrade. So, and we also completed, we've completed 4 generators and upgraded, I think we only have 1 tower left to complete the generator upgrade. These generators we have to order from Peterson, and they actually are shipped out of Brazil. So the lead time on them are, range from 9 months to 12 months to get a generator to support these radio towers. And so we've completed a pretty significant upgrade in preparation to remove some blockers in order to do the next level of upgrades. Part of what we're especially looking for in the upgrade is to be able to have an encrypted channel for law enforcement so that the rest of the county and those that they're chasing can't listen to the transmissions. And so that's gonna be a significant life safety improvement for law enforcement that we're anticipating.
We're just keeping 19 sites with
19
backup
towers.
generator power. One of our sites doesn't have power, it has generator, runs
On
24/7.
24-hour, yeah.
So just the work of keeping 19 generators ready to go for emergency purposes is a ton of work.
So the one that doesn't have power to it at all and it's ran 24, does that have solar power or you
No,
diesel power?
It's diesel, we have 2 generators that we run in parallel, so we'll run 1 generator for 2 weeks and then we'll flip it to the backup generator while we do maintenance on the primary generator. And so we do
Let's
that
get it
every 2
replaced
weeks.
every couple of years, right? They wear
Yeah.
out in just a few years.
Yeah,
That
they do.
location is so remote that you have to go up into Lane County to get to it, come
Yeah.
back down.
Yeah, it's a drive.
Yeah, it's like halfway from Sutherland to the coast
Wow.
up there. It covers that area. Probably more than you wanted to know about
That's
radios.
actually a really critical one. It sounds remote, it's really critical. It's the only way to communicate from the valley here to the coast. It's high enough in there that it can go back down.
There's been a couple attempts to use a digital fiber optic connection to make it work, and maybe in the new world of digital radios we'll be able to make that happen, I don't know, but we've tried to figure out a way not to have that expense in the system for
Yeah.
a decade now, so
In the end,
it's
yeah.
So what about satellite? Is there some way the radios could work with satellite, the new Starlink? That's incredible. I can put my Starlink up and get service pretty much anywhere. On the fires, anywhere I go, I got Starlink service.
There is some communications that will use radio over satellite. However, none of our local law enforcement or our 55 agencies have the digital radios in their vehicles that could communicate with it. It would be digital and all of our system is analog.
that's part of the,
So,
looking at the
we would
different
have to-
upgrades.
Yeah, it's a significant increase to replace everybody's mobiles and portables in their vehicles and their the ones they wear. It's in our future, but we're not there yet.
Okay.
It sounds easy if you say it fast.
Yes. Just ordered Starlink.
Okay.
Motion and second.
Yeah. We have a motion and a second, no other discussion. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you very much.
You
Have a
guys
great day.
Thank you too.
James. These museum, tab 16.
His favorite job of the year right here.
Good morning,
Good morning.
I'm James Davis, the museum director. So we were asked to maintain status quo. We did have to add a little bit because our staff is aging. And so, and we also needed to do some deferred building maintenance, but other than that, just keep plugging along.
When you say aging, yeah, might be an understatement there.
Yeah.
Some very dedicated folks there at the museum.
So you don't have volunteer staff running the museum?
We have a lot of volunteers
Oh, okay.
at both sites, yes.
I was gonna say, I
but-
thought it was volunteers.
Yeah,
For half the year last year, I was the only full-time employee between Roseburg and, so we needed to add a little.
The amount of operation you run with the few staff that you have is just absolutely remarkable.
3.5 people, 2 operations.
And
Oh,
that
this
coast,
is between the
yeah,
coast
this is
and.
the coast and here, yeah.
Wow.
You go over to that coast operation and the new store, restaurant, call it whatever you wanna call it, has great clam chowder, by the way, if you ever get a chance to go over there. But it is remarkable, just that facility alone, just that store should require more people in your whole budget, let alone the 2 museums and the lighthouse and everything else that you do. It's pretty remarkable.
We were able to get a new deck put in and people are really starting to use it, so
You guys have done an amazing job everywhere,
we're trying.
everywhere.
He's understating that when he says we've been able to put a new deck in. He built a new deck. He built it.
Yeah, I was over there when you were starting that, saw you out there, it's like, wow.
I had volunteers helping. I didn't do it all myself, believe me. We get
Fantastic
lots of
job.
good people that help us and, you know, we have.
There is not a day that goes by that you can, summer or winter, you can't stop by that lighthouse and there's somebody there at the gift shop or something doing, spend money. And
It slowly just keeps increasing, so
we've transformed
positive.
the entire property over there. It's open and beautiful and
Yeah, the view that you've created by cleaning up that brush and
It's looking good, huh?
I
it's beautiful.
was over there a few years ago and cut a little hole in it so you could see the ocean, and I went back over a few years later, man, it was mowed clean. You could,
Expanding it out.
it is a, $1 million view. It is beautiful.
Good.
Move to tentatively approve museum budget.
Commissioner Boyce made the motion.
And I will do my part to help make sure the revenues stay up, cause every time I go to the coast, that's where I go.
We appreciate it.
As do I.
Good.
It's,
I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Kress has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Planning, Josh. Tab 19. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Committee. Joshua Shackley, Douglas County Planning Director. Just as a quick refresher, Douglas County Planning provides land use planning services to developers and citizens in Douglas County. In addition, planning also administers the code enforcement program and several other programs, and we run the county mailroom. Planning staff includes 13.5 FTE. This is a reduction of 1 FTE from the current fiscal year. We manage an additional FTE budgeted by another department. That's a code enforcement position budgeted by the building department. The Board of Commissioner direction was to prepare a status quo budget. However, we have made a concerted effort to minimize expenditures, and we continue to explore ways to increase revenues. Proposed planning budget requires a general fund contribution of $1,522,950, an increase of 10% from the current fiscal year budget. As far as revenue goes, we have seen development activity in the county dip a little bit. I think you heard a little bit about that from the building department earlier. It's part of a larger trend that we see happening elsewhere, not just in Douglas County. And it's kind of hard to predict where that's gonna go from here. That means fewer land use permits issued, and that's reflected in revenue generated by fees, services, and charges. I will also note that a transfer from solid waste department will help fund a second code enforcement position going forward. As far as expenditures go, as mentioned earlier, we have eliminated one FTE. That's a planning technician position, and taken measures to keep the department costs at a minimum. A significant cost reflected in our budget this year is a study of over 40 properties developed in an area designated as a FEMA floodway. So we've brought on an engineering firm to complete that study. You'll see that reflected in our expenditures this year. Personnel services, after several years of pretty significant increases in our personal services, there's not much change this year. Part of that's due in part to the elimination of that FTE. I do want to recognize that we have built a very strong staff dedicated to serving the citizens of Douglas County. After some challenging times following COVID, we've been very fortunate to build a strong team and been able to recruit and retain very well over the past couple of years. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Got a couple things. So you run a great department. You do all the extra stuff when we ask you to do it, and you've got great people down there. One of the challenges we have, so if you go back to 15-16 budget, your revenues for your services were about 60% of the cost of your program. Today's budget, and just estimating, it's about 20%. So we're gonna have to take a look at, and when it was, we were spending 40% of the general fund to offset the cost of your department. One of the things I looked at is that's, sort of our piece of economic development, keeping your fees low, helping developers, get through the process of planning. On the building side, we've always required it to be self-sufficient. The users pay for the cost. Again, in your department, I've always sort of thought that sort of the cost of doing business was our piece of the economic development, keeping those fees down. At 20%, we've got a problem. So, that discussion's not for today, but at some point, we have to look serious about what our fee schedule is, what the services we're providing, and those that benefit from those services are gonna need to pay for them to a higher degree than they are today.
And I agree completely with what Commissioner Freeman's saying. I also think in order to do that, we've got to boil out some of the things in this budget that have nothing to do with that. We've increased, as a board, has increased our priorities to the solid waste, the compliance stuff that have gotten out of hand. You've seen it all throughout everywhere. Believe me that we've doubled our efforts to make that better. It'd be way worse if we didn't do what we're doing. So that fees are in there, and we need to boil that out so we can look at that and say, well, this stuff we've just made an effort to do that, and it's costing us money.
It's just housed in his department, but
it is happened to be in his budget, but we have people and staff time and his time with significant amount of that is to try to keep Douglas County beautiful.
But there is a cost to it.
There is a cost to it.
And I don't want to speak out of turn, but we have done some exploration into fee schedule, and we've looked at a number of other counties, kind of where we are relative to other fees elsewhere in the state. So we're doing that type of analysis, and I don't know where we go from here, but we've had quite a bit of discussion around that.
And you can imagine that where we are compared to the other counties, because
Again, historically, we've seen the value and had the funding to keep those fees low and trying to help developers. It just, as we move through the next several budget cycles, things are getting much more difficult, and we're cutting positions and services, so we may have to look at something different.
We haven't made any significant changes to our fee schedule in over 10 years, so
So I was gonna ask if
we're not really keeping ahead of stuff and with the costs of things the way they are now. It's
If you go back 10 years, I've got the 10-year budget, you know, fees were roughly 60% of the budget. It wasn't 100% then.
Right.
Right, so.
Sure. Okay.
Tentatively move to approve budget.
Okay, Commissioner Kress has made a motion to tentatively approve.
I'll second.
Commissioner Boyce has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Ron Quimby, surveyor.
We got Gene here.
Not Ron, sorry, I didn't look up.
No, that's okay. Gene Crawford, Survey Tech.
Hi, Gene. Tab 20.
Yes, this year, we have taken away a 0.8 FTE that we never had filled, to be truthful. I am going to be retiring around the end of the year. My position, since we now have a deputy county surveyor, my position can be filled with I'm a Tech 3. We could replace it with a Tech 2 who would come in at a lower rate, so that's gonna hopefully save some money, although I may be coming back a little bit to help train the next person. In the last couple of years, we have received FEMA money in our corner preservation fund for the Archer, to do corner stuff in the Archer Creek area, which I don't have a total. I know we've gotten around 150,000-ish, and there might be more than that. That goes into our corner preservation fund, which works our field crew and such. Other than that, I don't know what to say.
Keep on doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Now, also, we are doing more surveys for the other departments so that they don't have to hire outside surveyors, which saves money. I mean, they are paying us, but it's a lot lower rate than what,
Example, that's the solid waste thing we were talking about, you know, acquiring that property, they went out and did that one for us. And again, we pay them, but not
right,
as
not
much as we would pay a contractor to do it.
Yeah, correct, cause Ron had looked into, cause he had formerly worked at IE and he checked in what their hourly rates for a 2-person field crew, and it's a lot more than what we would be asking for. When we did at the airport last year, at Sutherland Airport, we did a boundary line adjustment
Industrial
there.
park there, yeah.
We've done a survey over at the coast for Public Works. We're working with natural resources on the dams.
You know, and it's been their habit not to charge and not to do anything, and I think we're doing ourselves an injustice when we do that, because it doesn't show the cost of the project, it's hard to manage, I mean, we don't know. I think we need to do that, you know, we need to value their time.
I think that's important.
Needs to be credited to that department from the other
Needs to
project.
be, yes.
Yes,
So
otherwise
so like, you know, lately I've been directing them to make sure to do that, keep track of it.
keep the
It
water
was-
clear.
We had this whole thing, a lot of our departments had this thing, it's like, oh, well, you know, I don't, you know, happy to do it, I just wanna, you know, I don't wanna charge them for it. I said, well, yeah, but it's important, we need to know, we need its cost accounting.
Well, it helps us as budget committee members to know what the actual cost of doing things is as we're making decisions.
I make a motion to tentatively approve the surveyor's budget.
Katie's made the motion to tentatively approve.
I second.
Commissioner Boyce has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep,
Have a good one.
thank you, you too.
Parks,
Save the
the
last
last,
for
the
last.
last one.
We gotta do
Tab-
presentation, or are we working off this?
Tab 18.
Mark, thanks for making it a priority to be here. I know you were out of town, rushed back for this, so
With
appreciate
30
it.
minutes to spare,
Appreciate it.
wasn't gonna be late. So I put a presentation together for mine and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. We'll just walk through it. Who's advancing the slides? Okay. So we'll go to the first slide, operating revenue. I'm forecasting 2.692 million, about 1.5% over current budget. Price increases that we put in place in July 23 increased our revenue while our overnight stays dropped to 5.2%.
So is any of that in the book, or is this something different than what's in the book?
The numbers, they're all in.
I'm just trying to follow along,
They
I'm
do
sorry.
they do relate to the book,
I'm
but
trying to
it's
find
probably easier to watch. You're not necessarily seeing the same aggregation of the numbers, but the numbers are Dan and I have gone through them, they're good. What do you want me to do?
What do you wanna do? I'm not sure.
We saw a 3% decrease in coastal parks and overnight stays. And what we saw was a shift to Umpqua Dunes, which saw a 10% increase. Umpqua Dunes is proving to be very popular. Inland Park saw a 10% decrease, primarily driven by a 37% decrease at Stanton and 32% decrease at Amica Park. Next slide, non-operating revenue. 1.22 million for this year. It's significantly up over last year. This includes our lease revenue of $135,000 and estimated proceeds of just over $1 million from sale of real property. These are a number of park properties that were either undeveloped or have been closed as parks, and we're gonna move forward and sell those in FY25. And then other minor sources of non-operating revenue include equipment asset sales and firewood sales. Next slide. O&M grants, we're looking at $634,000 in O&M grants, just up slightly from last year. These O&M grants consist of Marine Board, annual Marine Board grant of about $67,000. We get $368,000 in RV license fee revenue, and we get support through the OPRD ATV program for our coastal parks, and that's about $200,000 a year. And the ATV and the boat ramp funding, that's relatively stable. The RV funding is a function of how many RVs are sold and how many licenses are re-registered. And then there's a formula based on population in counties, and it's just is what it is. So they send that out every year. Personnel costs, no change in number of FTE for FY25. We're currently fully staffed with no vacancies. That budget's up about 4.5% over last year. Operating expenses and forecasting 1.116 million, about 3.6% over last year. We added internet services at a number of campgrounds. That's added $50,000 to this total, and we had a settlement with Winchester Bay Sanitary District that has dropped our annual cost by about $10,000 a year. Capital projects, planning for just under $3 million in projects, and this includes Whistler Bend Phase 2, and that will start just after Labor Day this year. Stanton Park Phase 1 and 2, we're doing some portion of Phase 1 right now. The balance will be teamed up with Phase 2 and start this fall. And then River Forks Dog Park, we have some money budgeted for that, and I do not have grants for that, and my goal is to pursue grant opportunities to leverage those dollars and do something at River Forks Park. Next slide. Capital purchases, down slightly from last year, relatively flat, and this is to purchase 3 pickups, some utility carts, utility trailer, and commercial riding lawnmower with attachments. And just just to note, department has 26 vehicles, our average mileage is over 120,000 miles. So I'm trying to get that fleet mileage down in
How many employees do you have?
17.
You have 26 vehicles?
We have a lot of volunteers. We have vehicles with our camp hosts. So for example, we have our camp host Singleton, and he takes care of Happy Valley, the Narrows, a number of facilities. So we have
2 vehicles for Camp Host at Whistler's Bend, right?
we have one there at Whistler Bend. Scottsburg Camp Host has one. So we have a number of those, and they're typically like your Chevy S10, Chevy Colorado. We buy those from Forest Service as used
So you've got
vehicles.
3 more, I can't tell if that's 2 or 3,
Three.
more F-250s
Mhm.
scheduled to buy. So in the last 2 years, that's what, close to 10 or 12 vehicles?
No, I've bought 3 last year. I've got 1 physically delivered this year, 2 F-150s. Who knows when they're gonna release the orders for them? And yeah, we're just
3 more, I think it gets pretty close to 9 or
maybe
10,
nine,
yeah.
nine. Yeah, I've been trying to get 3 a year and just turn the fleet over.
The reason I ask that is, for the longest time, we used vehicles like from the sheriff's department and others for the parks department.
Mhm.
You know, that had 100,000 miles on them, then we used them in the parks department to, you know, for the volunteers and stuff. And now it seems like we're doing big 3/4 ton pickups for everybody. I'm just curious of the use, you know, what the need is, so.
Well, my goal is standardize the fleet. When you're buying or when you're getting surplus Forest Service or law enforcement, you're giving someone a 3/4 ton or a 1 ton, we know maybe all they need is a 150. So I have a lot of people driving around in 3/4 tons that don't need to be.
Only buying 3/4 tons though.
This year I am, but I've got 2 F-150s for this year. I'm trying to get people into the right vehicles.
You can bring us back a plan for that if you want at some point to
Vehicle replacement.
yeah, and show us who's driving what and why, and we've talked about it, I'm confident in what you're doing, and I get it, but I can see where the questions come from too. It's, and in years past, the Parks Department has been one where they have literally survived on hand-me-downs. And they had, $300,000 worth of junk laying around out at the shop that was completely not utilized also. And Mark's done a pretty good job of trying to standardize the department and make it fluid and get rid of the things that we don't need and have the right equipment that we do need to be efficient. That one mower that you bought is a great example of a piece of equipment that the Parks Department should have always had, but never had, and I can't imagine how much time savings and repairs and maintenance we've saved by having the right piece of equipment for the right job, so I've seen the plan, I think you're doing fine.
See, your occupancy, gone up this year, have you noticed a difference?
Excuse me?
Well, Chief Maiwalita
Yeah.
Park, has the occupancy gone up this year with water being up?
It was up like the water.
Yeah, I would think so.
It's like, we're gonna have a banner weekend just because it's gonna be nice and sunny.
Yeah.
Fill up
Spectacular.
the campgrounds. Last year was a really wet Memorial Day, and this time, before Memorial Day weekend, all we're doing is handling cancellations, so. Some of our business is subject to the weather.
So do you refund when they cancel, or is it non-refundable?
We have a cancellation policy, and it's convoluted. I won't get into all the details, but it's designed to stop people from gaming the system. Because people can go reserve a whole bunch of stuff just to block everything out. And so
Tuesday,
we,
you get no money back. You book your spot, and if you cancel it, you're out.
yeah, you can
No
cancel
refunds.
and move it, and we charge $10
Okay.
to change the reservation.
So but you're not doing refunds, they just get to move it.
They get to move it out. Yeah, there's some exceptions, but generally we just let them move the reservation out for a $10 change fee. Let's go next slide, non-capital purchases. Looking at $108,000 here, and includes the following: metal picnic table frames, metal benches, concrete picnic tables, some cornhole games, office furniture, and cashless pay stations. We're in the process of putting 6 cashless pay stations on the, on the coast. And this will continue that effort, putting them inland. Last year, the department handled over $200,000 in cash. And per our cash handling policies and accountability, that cash essentially gets counted 3 times, twice by my department and once by Dan's department. And there's a lot of other issues around just having that much cash in the system. So going to these cashless pay systems is really gonna streamline things and be efficient and reduce any incidents of theft or malfeasance by customers. By that I mean they will go through the motions of going to a cash box, fill out the envelope, and put it in there for 2 nights or 3 nights, and then we're usually a few days later emptying the cash boxes, and then they get over to the office, the person opens them, and there's a note in there going, "Thanks for the free nights." And what do you do? So-
For concrete cornhole games,
Mhm.
and I don't see why are we buying concrete cornhole games? Most
we're-
people like us that go, if you wanna play cornhole, you already have your own cornhole boards and you take them with you.
We have a number of horseshoe pits in the campgrounds, in the parks, and we're looking to replace those with cornhole. It's kind of the new thing.
I don't know, how you gonna keep it smooth enough for the corn bags to slide and, you know, like with horseshoes, you have the horseshoes. With cornhole, it's a bag, you can't leave it out in the weather, it gets.
Oh, you bring your own bags.
Oh.
We're just providing the concrete cornholes.
Okay,
It's pretty standard right now, believe it or not.
So they're popular, and we've got these horseshoe pits that are in disrepair. We gotta do something with them, and that was the idea, is to provide a different amenity for people. So these will go at roof forms. Next slide. Oh, next slide. Is any questions? I'm done.
I think you're doing a great job, Mark, and we look at the amount of money that we've invested in the system over the years, and it's a lot. But we have a few big projects left to go. And then I expect some pretty smooth sailing and quite a bit of return on investment over the next 10 to 15 years. There's gonna be a ongoing maintenance cost, of course, but the future is finish the improvements at Whistler's, move to Stanton Park in Canyonville, which is gonna be a significant upgrade to that facility, and I imagine we've way underestimated the ROI on that, would be my guess. And then back to the coast with an addition to Umpqua Dunes that's been doing fantastic. And then a conversion of Half Moon Bay to full hookups and potentially an expansion there now that we have water available, like it'll have.
Make it Full Moon Bay.
Yeah.
What was that, Tim?
Make it Full Moon Bay.
That's a Half Moon Bay is gonna be a big project. There's a lot of ground and a lot of, ambitious ideas about what to do there.
And then I think, we've got some sleepers out there that potentially could be revenue generators that have been underutilized in the past. I think improvements to places like Cabot Creek, where you could have a
Pavilion.
yeah, pavilion and maybe a remote camping site with no hookups that you could charge by the night for. I think there's a revenue model there for that one, and maybe some others, and then we have some surplus properties still within the department that need to go away. Some of those are encumbered significantly by the lead restrictions and so on, but some of them aren't, and we need to work through those. Like one of the ones that's top of mind for me is Pass Creek Park. It's right along I-5, it's way at the very north boundary of the county, it's completely out of the way for us maintenance wise. And it's something that ideally would probably be better utilized in the private sector to provide some housing opportunity rather than trying to keep it a county park, but
I was surprised, however, last weekend, how many people were in
Yeah, it ebbs and flows. the last full fiscal year, that park generated just over 30,000 in gross revenue. And I haven't gone to looking at the utility bills and staff time, but it doesn't make as much money.
So anyway, the direction overall is good. The amount of effort that you've put into grant writing, the success that you've had getting grants and turning those into capital improvements has been fantastic. And I think that you're very organized and very efficient in getting rid of all the surplus junk and getting things down to where you really have the right equipment for the right job and the right people in place has made a big difference. And I'm grateful for the entire effort. It's been one of my things that I consider a feather in my cap to be able to be part of the transformation of the Parks Department. So appreciate you.
Thank you.
Dan, are you gonna be able to make this presentation available to us?
You bet.
Yeah, I'd like to get a copy
And
of it too.
I'm gonna vote no, just so everybody knows, just cause I spent a lot of time going through the budget that was presented to us, ready to ask a bunch of questions, and then we have a different presentation, so I'll spend some time on that. This is probably outside your, I wish I'd have saw that ahead of time, I could have been more prepared, so. And we get another bite at the apple, we end up voting for the budget,
My
so
apologies.
I'm sure I'll be ready by then.
I move to tentatively approve the Parks budget.
Okay. Commissioner Boyce has made the motion, Commissioner Kress has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Motion carried. And with that, there is no requested returns of department heads, so
One correction in juvenile.
Yes.
what's that?
We got one minor correction in juvenile before we adopt that 15,000.
They'll reduce their travel and conventions by 15,000.
well,
Be revised, so.
Revised, okay.
Okay.
So
we ought to
which tab were they on?
We should make somebody nervous.
Calm back.
I think you make the motion contingent upon the adjustment to
Yeah.
juvenile, you could just say that.
I move to approve the 2024-2025 fiscal year budget as presented, revised.
As revised.
As revised. And the property taxes it contains at a rate of $1.1124 per $112,000 of assessed value.
Second.
Katie's made the motion, Commissioner Boyce has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Bella's,
What's that?
Bella's in agreement.
Okay, that was a tiebreaker. Yeah.
She's in.
And with that, big thank you, Dan, to you and your team, and it just seems like it goes smoother and smoother, and we appreciate all you do. I mean, it takes a lot of work, we appreciate it. Commissioners, thank you for the heavy load you take on and do, and the decisions are not gonna get any easier in the coming years, and I know you don't take those lightly at all, so we appreciate all you do.
One thing that folks sort of see different between us and maybe cities or schools is we work on this budget year round with Dan and his team and the department heads. So, you know, when I was on the budget committee for the city of Roseburg, you sort of looked at the budget and then you went and did policy. Well, here we're every single day looking at the budget and we work on it all the time. And Dan's department, again, and along with the department heads, budget is something that is year round here. So,
That's because you're managers, administrators as
Yeah.
well as commissioners.
yeah, it's sort of part of that
People
job.
don't understand
right.
that. You're
Yeah,
administrators.
exactly
So
right.
we appreciate the budget committee members coming in and
Yes. very
taking
much.
the
Absolutely.
time to be up to
Yes.
speed, and when you get here, you can tell that you've done your homework and you're ready to ask good questions and make sure we're doing the right thing, so we sure appreciate it.
Alrighty, if nothing else, meeting adjourned, thank you very much.